This story of survival in an apocalyptic world kicks off with a harsh betrayal. The protagonist, Zhang Xiaoyong, finds himself suspended precariously above a cage packed with ravenous zombies. As if the situation wasn't dire enough, his ex-girlfriend sneers at him, taunting him about the deaths of all his friends. Her mockery reaches its peak as she assures him that his pathetic life is also nearing its end, soon to be just another addition to the carnage below. As Xiaoyong reflects on his misfortune, guilt and regret gnaw at him. He curses himself for trusting this treacherous woman, someone he now believes deserves a fate far worse than his. In her eyes, however, Xiaoyong's threats are meaningless. She's moved on to a wealthier, stronger man and tasks him with disposing of her former lover. Her new partner, a corpulent man named Fatty Li Shuxiong, eagerly agrees to the plan. He even suggests dragging out Xiaoyong's torment for her amusement. Before pushing the button that would seal Xiaoyong's fate, Li Shuxiong smugly thanked him for his generosity, gloating about the supplies they'd looted from him, which would keep them comfortable for months. With that, Xiaoyong was sent plummeting into the zombie pit. The frenzied zombies, driven by an insatiable hunger, swarmed Xiaoyong instantly. As agony overtook him, he clung to a desperate thought. If he could live his life again, he would make both Cui Jing and Li Shuxiong pay dearly for their betrayal. Suddenly, Xiaoyong jolted awake to the grating sound of Cui Jing's voice. She was nagging him, demanding to know why he hadn't added her name to the deed of his house. For a moment, he was disoriented. Was this a dream? Had he somehow gone back in time to before the apocalypse? Memories of his previous life flooded back. Cui Jing had conned him, stripping him of his parents' inheritance and leaving him homeless. Shortly after, the apocalypse descended, unleashing a global catastrophe that turned humans into mindless, flesh-hungry zombies. Despite the chaos, Xiaoyong had managed to survive, thanks to his resilience and the help of loyal friends. Together, they established a safe haven, fortified and well-stocked, where they could live without fear of the undead. But just when things seemed stable, Cui Jing returned, feigning desperation to win his sympathy. Xiaoyong, blinded by her deception, let her in, only for her to betray him once more. She sabotaged the safe zone, allowing their enemies to breach the gates, leading to the destruction of everything they'd built. Now, she was back, demanding an extravagant bride price and the deed to his home, as if her betrayal had never happened. This time, however, Xiaoyong was determined to take control. Though he kept his anger in check, he knew he needed a careful plan. Giving in to impulsive emotions could jeopardize everything. After pretending to agree to her demands, he sent Cui Jing away, leaving her stunned at his newfound confidence. Unused to being defied, she couldn't understand how her obedient slave had suddenly become so assertive. With Cui Jing out of the picture, Xiaoyong could finally focus. He had a month left before the apocalypse struck, and every second was precious. He vowed to prepare thoroughly this time, ensuring that no betrayal or misstep would threaten his survival. Then, something unexpected happened. A system notification popped up, resembling a video game interface. Xiaoyong discovered he had activated an apocalypse system, which came with missions designed to help him survive. His first task was titled Apocalypse Preparation, requiring him to secure a piece of land and stockpile enough supplies for a year. Completing the mission would earn him 10 points, which could be exchanged for valuable rewards in the system's store. Our protagonist was thrilled with the unexpected perk, the system's missions, and the rewards that came with completing them. What more could one ask for? However, the system store's offerings remained a mystery to him. It mostly stocked loot boxes and potions, such as those for boosting physical strength. Yet, his musings were interrupted by the loud growling of his stomach, reminding him he needed a proper meal. Reflecting on his past life, Xiaoyong recalled how he used to pinch every penny, starving himself to save for Cui Jing's bride price. But things are different now. Determined to indulge, he decided to treat himself to a luxurious meal. With the impending zombie apocalypse just a month away, he figured he should enjoy the finer things while they lasted. A few hours later, his delivery arrived. Xiaoyong marveled at the sight. It was a legendary Michelin 3-star takeaway. Never in his wildest dreams could he have afforded such a thing before. He eagerly dug into the $300 braised pork, savoring every bite. After surviving on scraps during the apocalypse, the taste was heavenly, almost surreal. But Xiaoyong didn't stop there. He went into full food enthusiast mode, devouring dish after dish. His appetite seemed insatiable, and he nearly polished off everything when his phone rang. The caller? Xiaoya, Cui Jing's friend. It seemed Cui Jing had wasted no time complaining to her. Xiaoyong reluctantly answered, only to be greeted by an ear-splitting tirade. Xiaoya berated him, questioning how he could dare to treat Cui Jing so poorly. She insisted Cui Jing was merely testing his love and claimed he had failed miserably. If he truly loved her, he'd prove it by handing over the deeds to his house and 1,000,000 yuan in cash as an apology. Xiaoya even offered to mediate with Cui Jing if he complied. If not, he could expect a breakup. Xiaoyong's patience snapped. Who did she think she was to test him like this? Furious, he told her off and ended the call. He was done with greedy women who only cared about money. His priority now was to secure a suitable piece of land. He envisioned building an impregnable fortress, easy to defend and strategically located near water and forest. The following morning, Xiaoyong visited a real estate agency. A friendly consultant greeted him, asking if he was looking to rent or buy. Xiaoyong confidently replied that he was after something more valuable. Just then, the sales manager, Zhu, appeared and brusquely ordered the consultant, Xiong, to help unload boxes of toilet paper. Despite Xiong's protest that she was assisting a customer, Manager Zhu dismissed Xiaoyong outright, deeming him a broke nobody in shabby clothes who wasn't worth their time. The manager's arrogance irked Xiaoyong, who decided to put him in his place. He asked Zhu to repeat his words and explain his audacity in belittling others. Zhu, unfazed, doubled down, mocking Xiaoyong further. He even declared he'd eat a toilet on a live stream if Xiaoyong could afford to buy one. It was clear the manager was about to regret his words. Unbothered, Xiaoyong smirked and advised Zhu to prepare for a feast of porcelain. He clarified he wasn't here for a house, but to buy land. The announcement stunned everyone present. It wasn't every day someone came to buy land outright. Xiong quickly invited Xiaoyong to sit while she outlined the available options. Meanwhile, Manager Zhu glared in disbelief, convinced Xiaoyong was bluffing. Xiong presented detailed listings, but Xiaoyong wasn't interested in browsing. He outlined his requirements instead. Land near mountains and running water, preferably with existing factories or large buildings. Xiong promised to check for suitable options. Manager Zhu, unable to resist butting in again, suggested a property in the Eastern District. Xiong hesitated, pointing out that the area, known as T-City Land, was filled with unfinished projects and abandoned factories, making it unsuitable for most buyers. Zhu dismissed her concerns, claiming no real customers had shown up anyway, and he suspected Xiaoyong was just wasting their time. Xiaoyong didn't care about the location as long as the land met his needs. He didn't mind the unfinished factories. Actually, they were a bonus since they would save him time and money. After reviewing the details, Xiaoyong confirmed that the land was exactly what he wanted. Without hesitation, he agreed to buy it. He was ready to sign the contract and make the payment. Xiong was shocked. No one in their right mind would buy land with incomplete factories, but Xiaoyong stood firm. He even urged her to hurry up because, as he put it, someone here is eager to eat some fresh poop. Manager Zhu stood there, holding the check, unable to wrap his head around what he was seeing. How was it even possible for this scrappy guy to pay 300,000 for land with old, run-down factories? It made no sense to him. Before leaving, Xiaoyong had reminded him of the payment. Now it was time for Zhu to fulfill his part of the deal. Meanwhile, to soften the blow, Xiaoyong sent a super chat donation to keep things light. Other customers in the store were urging Zhu to hurry up, as the stream had already started. One guy, whose stomach wasn't feeling too great, promised to at least make it fresh for the stream. Xiaoyong had completed the first task. The next step was to figure out how to turn the land purchase into a real business by gathering supplies. As he was leaving the real estate office, an old acquaintance, Li Shuxiong, spotted him and couldn't help but wonder what Xiaoyong was up to. But all thoughts flew out of his head when he saw what was going on inside. Manager Zhu was now being pressured by the staff and customers to keep his word, all while begging for help and desperately explaining he didn't want to go through with it. Meanwhile, Cui Jing was living carefree, painting her nails and enjoying the quiet life. That's when she got a call from Li Shuxiong, who asked if she knew Xiaoyong had just bought land at the real estate company. Shocked, she wondered where he had gotten so much money from. Li Shuxiong suggested it was probably the money he'd saved for the bride price. Cui Jing was furious. She couldn't believe Xiaoyong would use her money for something like that. Li Shuxiong urged her to stay calm and go talk to Xiaoyong about it, but Cui Jing's anger was blinding. She wasn't going to ask him anything. She was going to confront him. Back at his home, Xiaoyong was deep in thought about how to fund the supplies he needed to start building. Just then, There was a loud knock on the door. It was Cui Jing with her sister, still fuming over Xiaoyong's use of her money. Xiaoyong had no idea what she was talking about, and Cui Jing, with fire in her eyes, accused him of spending the bride price money to buy land. She claimed that since the money came from her, the land was hers too. Xiaoyong, stunned by her accusations, didn't know how to respond. Finally, he decided to give her a straightforward explanation. He had plenty of money, but none of it would go toward her. He also knew about her little fling with Li Shuxiong. Cui Jing was baffled, not understanding how he knew, but her sister, sensing where the conversation was heading, suggested they calm down and resolve the misunderstanding. Xiaoyong, however, wasn't having it. "There's no misunderstanding here," he said. "Cui Jing isn't my girlfriend. She's just a doormat for that old fat guy Li Shuxiong." He slammed the door in their faces, tired of the drama. Cui Jing still couldn't understand how he knew about her and Li Shuxiong. Her sister was just as confused, wondering why Cui Jing hadn't told her about her relationship with Li Shuxiong. Cui Jing quickly assured her it was nothing serious, just a few room rentals here and there. With things escalating out of control, they decided to head home and figure out their next move. But now, Xiaoya was thinking of taking things into her own hands and winning Xiaoyong over. After all, they were good sisters. The following day, Xiaoyong arrived at his new property with a construction crew. He was ready to rebuild one of the factories, but wasn't sure how long it would take. Foreman Li quickly assessed the situation and explained that reinforcing the walls, setting up defensive towers, installing barbed wire, thickening the steel doors, and adding bulletproof glass would take some time. He couldn't help but wonder what kind of enemies Xiaoyong had made to need such heavy fortifications. Xiaoyong just waved him off, telling him that some things were better left unknown. He wanted to know how much it would cost to finish the project in a month. The foreman shook his head, stating that it couldn't be done that quickly. Xiaoyong wasn't fazed, saying he had connections who could get the job done faster. The foreman, standing his ground, said that the safety of the workers was more important. This took Xiaoyong by surprise. He had never met a foreman with a conscience. It turned out, though, that the cost would just be higher. Xiaoyong asked him to give him the price without further delays. After some quick calculations, Foreman Li estimated that if they were to finish in a month, the workers would need to work non-stop, and the cost would come to 20 million yuan. They'd also require a 5 million yuan deposit to start immediately. Xiaoyong didn't find this ideal. He told them to get started right away, and he'd transfer the rest of the payment within a week. The construction company had nothing to fear. If he failed to pay, the land would be theirs. Out of nowhere, Xiaoya appeared at the construction site. She confidently walked up to him, wrapped her arm around his, and asked, "What are you doing here?" Xiaoyong was already tired of this woman. In his past life, she, along with Cui Jing, had driven him out of his parents' inheritance, and now he was ready to make her pay twice as much for everything she had done. No matter how much she pretended to be a good girl, he could see through her rotten nature. Xiaoya, seeing the construction site, asked with feigned interest, "Is this the land you bought? It's so beautiful here. I bet you want to build a villa, right?" But Xiaoyong didn't care about her assumptions or thoughts on what he should do with the land. Her attempts to act like she cared made him feel nothing but disgust. She couldn't understand his cold response. Normally, just a gentle touch from her on his arm would have made him nervous, but today, he didn't even flinch. Instead, he turned away from her indifferently, walking over to the construction workers to instruct them on fixing the gate, which needed to be widened. Xiaoya couldn't miss this opportunity. After Cui Jing had ruined everything for Xiaoyong, she thought this land might now be her chance. Xiaoyong returned home, his mind racing with ideas on how to get more money. After he had mortgaged his house, he received a loan of 3 million yuan, but that amount was barely enough to cover the first phase of construction. Still, considering the inevitable collapse of the world, he reasoned that it wouldn't matter. If he sold the house to a few buyers, it would be no problem. It was something that had to be dealt with no matter what. Then there was a knock on the door. Xiaoyong opened it to find his infuriating neighbor, Grandpa Li, standing there. This old man, who lived downstairs, was a wealthy, greedy person who owned the apartments on the first and second floors. He had been trying to buy the third floor from Xiaoyong, but Xiaoyong refused to sell. As a result, Grandpa Li had started making life difficult for him, painting the doors, scattering trash, leaving coffins by his doorstep, and jamming locks. The old man had done everything in his power to harass Xiaoyong, and now he was accusing him of throwing a party the night before. Xiaoyong, however, had gone to bed early and hadn't made any noise. But there was no point in arguing over the false accusation. Xiaoyong knew what Grandpa Li really wanted, his house. So, Pretending to be fed up, he told the old man he was ready to sell. Grandpa Li, shocked and surprised, could hardly believe his ears. Xiaoyong had a condition, though. He wanted to stay in the house for another 6 months, until he found a new place to live. But the old man had to transfer 5 million yuan into Xiaoyong's account immediately, so Xiaoyong could pay the deposit for the new house. If Grandpa Li didn't agree to this, the deal was off. The greedy old man couldn't let the opportunity slip by, so he agreed but insisted on signing a contract to make sure Xiaoyong couldn't change his mind. Xiaoyong had no issue with that. After all, the old man would still die in his house when the apocalypse began. Once Grandpa Li transferred the 5 million yuan, Xiaoyong now had a total of 8 million yuan, 3 million from the loan and 5 million from the old man. It was time to tackle the next task and earn the reward. The biggest supermarket in the area was the perfect place to get started. Xiaoyong set off to stock up on supplies for the coming year. The people around him watched him, thinking he was mentally unstable. They kept their distance as he pushed several grocery carts through the aisles. When he reached the checkout line, the onlookers laughed at him, thinking he was just another fool caught up in the doomsday rumors. But Xiaoyong didn't care about their judgment. What mattered was completing the task that the system had set for him, and once he did, he earned 10 points. With those points, he bought a special supply box from the system store. Xiaoyong didn't hesitate. When he opened the box, he found a level 1 space ring, a personal subspace of 500 cubic meters, where time stood still and anything stored there would never spoil. This was an incredible gain. The fact that time stopped inside the subspace meant he could store fresh food without worrying about it going bad. Along with the new item, Xiaoyong received a new mission, 10 years of sustenance, which would reward him with 20 points for completion. But just as he was starting to process his new acquisition, he was approached by the security chief of the supermarket, Yang Tao. Yang Tao, a former high school classmate, recognized Xiaoyong. He had been the lackey of a local bully, extorting money from weaker students. Xiaoyong had frequently clashed with him back in the day. Today, Xiaoyong didn't expect to run into Yang Tao here. Yang Tao insisted that Xiaoyong put everything back in its place, or else he wouldn't be kind. Xiaoyong responded that he hadn't changed at all and was still picking on the weaker ones. However, Xiaoyong had no intention of returning the items. As a paying customer, he wasn't about to back down. "Is this how you treat customers?" he asked. Yang Tao immediately demanded Xiaoyong pay for the goods right there, and then, threatening that if he didn't, things would get worse. An hour later, all the cashiers had finally totaled the items, 56,000. Yang Tao wasted no time, demanding the payment. Without hesitation, our hero used his credit card like a tool of power. The transaction was completed successfully, leaving the security chief stunned. Just as Yang Tao was about to leave, ready to let the matter go, Xiaoyong called him to wait. Xiaoyong wasn't about to let it slide. He wanted an apology for Yang Tao's rude behavior, or he'd return everything. The security chief thought it was unnecessary, but with so many witnesses around, he knew better than to ignore it. Everyone had seen everything unfold and was fully on Xiaoyong's side. They filmed the incident, threatening to make Yang Tao infamous on the internet unless he apologized. Xiaoyong even promised that if the apology was genuine, he'd buy 10 times the amount of goods. If Yang Tao didn't believe him, he could bring over the POS machine, and Xiaoyong would show him his account balance. When Yang Tao saw 7 million, his disbelief was evident. Xiaoyong only wanted an apology before he continued his shopping spree. Although the security chief struggled with his pride, the pressure was overwhelming, and he gave in, apologizing. As Xiaoyong walked past, he gave Yang Tao a piece of advice. Think before you act next time. You never know how things will turn out. Yang Tao, now trying to act friendly, asked why Xiaoyong was buying so much. Xiaoyong dismissed him, saying it was none of his business and that he had big plans ahead. Yang Tao, seeing a business opportunity, offered his help. The supermarket didn't have enough stock for such a big deal, but he knew a wholesaler, Zhang Shina, who had shifted to the wholesale business. Yang Tao immediately contacted him, excited to introduce Xiaoyong as a potential big client. Xiaoyong quickly realized that some people just never change. Since Yang Tao and Zhang Shina were still working together, he could only imagine how much they were exploiting the supermarket. Soon enough, they arrived at the wholesale warehouse, and an expensive car pulled up. From the way Zhang Shina drove, Xiaoyong knew this guy probably had never been deceived, and it was time to teach him a lesson. Although the arrogant Zhang Shina didn't immediately recognize him, Yang Tao reminded him they were schoolmates. After a moment of thinking, Zhang Shina finally remembered. He recalled Xiaoyong as the guy who had a bit of a backbone back in school. Zhang Shina immediately judged him based on his cheap, non-designer clothes. He despised people who tried to act rich when they weren't. Turning to Yang Tao, Zhang Shina began criticizing him for bringing such an unworthy client. He even kicked Yang Tao in the rear, scolding him for wasting his time. Despite Yang Tao's attempts to explain, Zhang Shina was convinced that Xiaoyong couldn't possibly be rich. He had been in business long enough to spot who had money and who didn't. Xiaoyong, tired of the arrogance, called Zhang Shina an ignorant person who looked down on others. Enraged, Zhang Shina grabbed him and demanded he take back what he said. Xiaoyong wasn't scared at all and repeated his words, calling him ignorant. To his surprise, it wasn't the insult about being looked down on that upset Zhang Shina, but the accusation of being illiterate. It turned out that this arrogant man was far too sensitive about his lack of education. Yang Tao, seeing things escalating, stepped in quickly, warning Xiaoyong to be careful not to provoke Zhang Shina further. Don't push him. He's really sensitive about being called illiterate. But for his trouble, Yang Tao received another kick and more insults, this time from Zhang Shina, who was furious that he couldn't do as he pleased. Zhang Shina faced our protagonist with an ultimatum. Either Xiaoyong would purchase a massive shipment of goods, or he'd be forced to leave crawling on all fours. Xiaoyong didn't seem fazed by the threat. He calmly instructed Zhang Shina to release his grip and requested the account details. Moments later, Zhang Shina's furious expression turned into shock as he realized Xiaoyong had deposited $1 million into his account. Xiaoyong explained that this was just an initial payment. He intended to purchase $5 million worth of goods. Zhang Shina asked about the specific items Xiaoyong needed. Xiaoyong listed basics like oil, rice, salt, snacks, and beverages, goods that had long shelf lives. A sly smile appeared on Zhang Shina's face. He had just received a batch of near-expired products, and this was the perfect chance to unload them onto Xiaoyong. When they arrived at the warehouse, Zhang Shina offered the entire stock at a 10% discount off the original price. The deal seemed too good to be true, and Xiaoyong immediately suspected something was off. Before agreeing, he decided to inspect the quality of the goods. True to his suspicions, it was a setup. Although the packaging looked fresh, the products were nearing their expiration dates. Zhang Shina hadn't expected Xiaoyong to catch on so quickly, so he immediately offered a 50% discount. But Xiaoyong wasn't satisfied. He was willing to spend his $5 million, but he expected top-quality goods. However, he had a different plan for these near-expired items. Xiaoyong told Zhang Shina he'd take the expired goods off his hands for half the price, with one condition. He would pay in a month. Zhang Shina was taken aback, but Xiaoyong quickly assured him that he'd use his house as collateral. Zhang Shina was confused, not understanding why Xiaoyong would want expired food. He didn't realize that in the near future, these items would become a highly valuable resource. Xiaoyong didn't explain further and simply instructed Zhang Shina to deliver the goods to the designated address. Just then, Xiaoyong received a call about a house sale. He quickly bid farewell to Zhang Shina and Yang Tao, heading off. The buyer was an elderly man who offered a $400,000 down payment and 3 months for Xiaoyong to vacate. The deal seemed almost too smooth, making Xiaoyong a little suspicious. He asked the old man why he was in such a rush. The man explained that his granddaughter needed to move for school, and Xiaoyong was the only one selling a property in the area. The old man was so upfront, even providing all the details willingly. Xiaoyong asked if he wasn't worried about the price being raised. The old man, realizing his slip, started pleading with Xiaoyong not to take advantage of him, as this was all his life savings. Xiaoyong, not one to exploit a genuine person, assured the old man that their deal was set and signed the contract. The old man was overjoyed, grateful that his granddaughter had a home, and even apologized for distracting Xiaoyong from his work. As Xiaoyong observed the old man's kindness, he felt concerned. He didn't think the man and his granddaughter would survive the apocalypse for long. Before the man left, Xiaoyong asked for his address. Later, Xiaoyong visited his property, where construction was progressing steadily. He checked with the foreman, who confirmed that nearly 80% of the work was done. The walls and doors were reinforced just as Xiaoyong had requested, and the warehouse was ready for use. Excited by the progress, Xiaoyong immediately contacted Zhang Shina to expedite the delivery of the supplies. The warehouse, which looked more like an underground bunker, began filling up quickly. By evening, everything was in place under Xiaoyong's meticulous supervision. Once the workers departed, Xiaoyong took a moment to inspect the work. Everything was on track, and he could finally relax. At that moment, the system sent a notification congratulating him for completing the task, earning him 20 system points. When he opened the system store, he found a new item available, abilities that could be awakened before the apocalypse. Without hesitation, Xiaoyong bought a box. Upon opening it, he unlocked a level 1 ability called Mind's Eye, which allowed him to detect hostility from others. Feeling satisfied with his new power, Xiaoyong knew this would be invaluable in the early days of the apocalypse. Just as he began to unwind, the system sent him another task: gather weapons. Lots of them. Xiaoyong wasn't fazed. Arming himself was exactly what he had planned. It was time to get ready for the coming chaos. Xiaoyong found himself at the heart of the city's late-night black market, ready to procure the weapons he needed. As he wandered through the bustling market, the constant noise of bargaining and the relentless chatter of customers and sellers filled the air. Everywhere he looked, there were hustlers trying to make a quick buck. Out of the corner of his eye, something caught his attention. Someone familiar. It was a man he had seen before during the first disaster, Li Shuxiong. He was aggressively negotiating the price of some fake jewelry, wearing down the seller until he agreed to a much lower price. Xiaoyong hadn't expected to run into this guy tonight, but it made sense that he would be here haggling over fake jewelry. It wasn't surprising that Shui Jing had been fooled by these worthless trinkets. After a few more steps, Xiaoyong finally came across a stall that piqued his interest. Lined up in front of him were various blades, each one sharper than the last. A grin slowly spread across his face as he examined the weapons. He had finally found what he was looking for. Squatting down in front of the stall, he asked boldly if they had anything tougher. The man behind the counter, dressed in military camouflage, didn't seem to get the hint. In response, he tossed Xiaoyong a knife sharpener, suggesting he sharpen the blades himself if he wanted something tougher. Unfazed, Xiaoyong insisted that none of these knives were up to par. He needed something stronger. Realizing the implication, the vendor's demeanor shifted, his tone turning serious as he asked if Xiaoyong was looking for trouble. Just then, the sound of a phone notification interrupted the tension. Xiaoyong had just transferred 200,000 yuan to the seller's account. Holding up the receipt, he made it clear he was serious. The seller's attitude flipped instantly as he acknowledged the transfer and reassured Xiaoyong that he was indeed a serious buyer. The seller quickly called one of his men to watch over the stall while he took Xiaoyong to a more private location for the transaction. They entered an innocuous building nearby, where the seller started pitching some homemade guns. They were small, intended for target practice, priced at 2,000 with cheap ammo. Xiaoyong turned him down immediately, which seemed to ignite a competitive spark in the seller. He then showed off some replica revolvers modeled after military handguns. For 5,000, Xiaoyong could get a 9mm gun, with bullets costing 5 each. Though Xiaoyong found the offer acceptable, he had already prepaid 200,000, so these options didn't interest him much. Curious about the prepayment, the seller asked what it meant. Xiaoyong explained that the earlier transfer was just a 10% deposit for a larger order worth 2 million. The seller, now a bit wary, questioned the young man's background. Xiaoyong quickly made up a story about how his subordinates usually handled these types of shady transactions, but he had come in person and didn't appreciate being questioned about his identity. Realizing that Xiaoyong must be involved in something serious, the seller urged him to wait as he hurried off to a different room. He locked the door behind him and scanned the area through the window. Turning back to Xiaoyong, he assured him he had come to the right person and that they would proceed with the deal at midnight the day after tomorrow. He insisted on cash payment only. When Xiaoyong finally left the building, the seller treated him like a VIP. However, as fate would have it, he bumped into the same familiar face from earlier in the night market. Li Shuxiong couldn't help but comment on the coincidence. Now, it made sense why Xiaoyong had been spending so much. Li Shuxiong also suspected that Xiaoyong's involvement with Shui Jing had something to do with it. He figured the kid had recently picked up too many tips about finances and was now planning to sell everything and live a life of comfort. Zhang Xiaoyong paid no mind to the ramblings of the fatty, whose words were nothing more than empty noise. He figured it would be more practical to test out his newly unlocked ability. As he opened his mind's eye, a faint aura shimmered in his gaze. Above Mr. Cam's head, a symbol of happiness floated, while an angry one appeared above Li Shuxiong. This power was definitely proving to be useful. To test it further, Xiaoyong decided to speak out loud, mocking the fatty for buying cheap, second-hand items just to deceive Shui Jing. He also pointed out that the girl was nothing more than his second-hand trash, just like the rest of the junk he was trying to pass off. The comment made the fatty's anger indicator turn even darker as he fired back with curses, clearly irritated by the jab. Watching the situation escalate, Mr. Cam, eager to keep things under control, asked Xiaoyong if the irate, overweight man was bothering him. With a subtle nod, he labeled Li Shuxiong as an enemy, a clear message. Mr. Cam quickly reassured his new important client that his staff would deal with the matter and teach the fatty a lesson. Xiaoyong didn't mind but advised them not to go too far, since he still had plans for him in the future. As the group of muscular thugs approached the overweight man, his bravado disappeared. He stammered, his usual arrogance replaced with fear. Mr. Cam didn't waste any more time with the man. With a swift motion, he pulled out a baton, and the men quickly took care of the fatty, leaving him bruised and battered on the dark road. His white suit was now covered in shoe prints, and his face showed the evidence of a hard beating. The incident only deepened the fatty's hatred for Xiaoyong. 2 days later, the agreed-upon meeting was set at a warehouse, and both parties were punctual. In front of Xiaoyong, a truck full of suspicious crates awaited, exactly what he was hoping for. When his firearm arrived, signaling the success of his task, the system rewarded him with 10 points, bringing his total to 20. He eagerly opened the crates, revealing an arsenal of weapons, heavy rifles, pistols, and all the necessary gear. Then, unexpectedly, the system added a bonus, a +2 physical enhancement potion. Xiaoyong was pleasantly surprised by this bonus, especially since it was double the strength of the potions in the system store. Not wasting a moment, he injected the potion into his veins. He had expected a brief pinch, but the surge of power was far more intense than he anticipated. The pain was sharp and immediate as the enhancement spread through his body. With his physical score now boosted by 2 points, Xiaoyong felt 40% stronger than before. Determined to make the most of this newfound strength, Xiaoyong checked out the system store once more and noticed another physical enhancement potion. Seeing the value of increasing his strength even more, he decided to take the plunge. After injecting the second potion, his physical score shot up to 8, making him 60% stronger than the average person. Excited to put his new power to the test, Xiaoyong looked around the warehouse and spotted some thick iron bars that were scattered about. He grabbed one, a sturdy bar used in construction, and threw it into the air. With a powerful kick, he bent the rod significantly, sending it flying into the nearby wall with enough force to create a noticeable dent. His kick had been so powerful that it left a visible impression on the wall. With this level of strength, Xiaoyong felt confident that he could handle anything, even the early stages of an apocalypse. As for the weapons, he knew better than to leave them exposed. Storing them safely in his spatial ring was the wisest move. With a simple gesture, he pointed the magical ring at the contents of the truck, and the weapons were absorbed into the ring instantly. The day after tomorrow, the apocalypse was set to begin. Time was running out, and Xiaoyong still had a few things to wrap up. However, he couldn't shake the image of the old man who had tried to buy his house. The old man had offered what little savings he had to secure a future for his granddaughter. Xiaoyong had been through countless battles and betrayals during the first apocalypse, but he'd never ignored the needs of the less fortunate. The least he could do was send some supplies to the old man and his granddaughter as a small token of repayment. The following day, Xiaoyong found himself at a shabby apartment building located in a rundown area of another city. The building was in such bad condition that without a GPS, it would have been impossible to find. The old man had been renting in such a low-cost, dilapidated place, and without an elevator, it was clear he wasn't well off. His apartment was located on the top floor. Xiaoyong knocked on the door, but then quickly realized he should probably remove the supplies from his storage ring, or explaining them would be difficult. Activating the ring, he watched as box after box of essential supplies materialized, filling the hallway with provisions. At that moment, the old man reached the door and opened it, expecting it to be the landlord. He quickly assumed the young man was here to collect the rent, promising to pay next week. But when he took a closer look, he realized it was Mr. Zhang. Behind him, boxes were piled up, filling the hallway and stretching up the stairs, making the old man even more confused. Xiaoyong told him to wait until later for the full explanation, but for now, they needed to get the boxes inside before anyone noticed. After a few minutes of lifting, most of which Xiaoyong did on his own, they managed to get everything in. The old man couldn't believe how easily the young man handled it, not even looking tired. Meanwhile, Xiaoyong was checking the space, trying to figure out if it could serve as a safe shelter. He decided it would do, especially since the front door was sturdy enough. Once everything was inside, Xiaoyong turned to the old man, urging him to pay close attention. He explained that the supplies they brought needed to be rationed carefully because they were meant to last for about 6 months, starting tomorrow. Just as he was about to go into more detail, something caught his eye. a photo hanging on the wall. It was of the proud old man with a beautiful young woman, his granddaughter. To his surprise, the woman in the picture was none other than Shan, a close friend from his past during the first apocalypse. Xiaoyong immediately asked the old man if the girl in the picture was named Shan. This puzzled the old man further, as he hadn't mentioned her name to the young man before. Xiaoyong's expression grew serious, and he quickly asked where Shan was now. The old man explained that she was still at school while they were finishing up the house paperwork. Xiaoyong remembered how Shan had once regretted dragging her grandfather into the chaos during the early days of the first apocalypse. He recalled how her grandfather had risked everything to save her. In that doomed timeline, the old man had fought his way through a zombie-infested school to save Shan, only to die in the process. As someone who had been close to the old man in his past life, Xiaoyong promised himself he wouldn't let that happen again. Turning to the old man, he declared that the house was no longer for sale. The old man panicked, thinking Mr. Zhang was backing out of the deal. But Xiaoyong gave him a chilling piece of news. The world would soon descend into chaos, and the house, along with Shan's school, wouldn't matter. The only thing that mattered now was getting Shan to safety. This sudden declaration only confused the old man further. Xiaoyong realized he couldn't explain everything in detail right now, so he decided to simplify things. He urged the old man to imagine the horrors of a famine. While it sounded terrifying, the old man couldn't grasp how this applied to their situation. Seeing that words weren't enough, Xiaoyong decided to show him instead. With a simple gesture, he made all the supply boxes disappear, sucked into his storage ring in an instant. The room, once crowded with boxes, was now completely empty. The old man stared, dumbfounded. There was no other word for it. Magic. Xiaoyong calmly explained that he had special powers and could see the future. If the old man wanted to survive and save Shan, he needed to listen carefully and follow his lead. Their next task was to get Shan out of her school. As they drove there at full speed, the old man was still trying to process everything, his mouth open in disbelief. Xiaoyong drove like a man on a mission, ignoring all traffic rules in his haste to get there. When they arrived, they found Shan surrounded by a group of students near one of the school buildings. She was being bullied by a couple of jealous girls. One slapped her across the face, while another kicked her in the stomach for daring to speak out. The situation was escalating, but the old man was too focused on reaching his granddaughter to notice the growing tension. As he ran toward Shan, the bullies shifted their attention to him. He yelled at them to stop hurting his granddaughter, but their attitude only grew more aggressive. A group of thugs stood in his way, showing their weapons and telling him to back off and let the girls handle things. Without hesitation, the old man charged forward, yelling at the young men for being heartless bullies. One of the thugs raised a steel bat and aimed it at the old man's head. It would have been a serious blow if it hit, but Xiaoyong reacted quickly, stepping in to stop the attack. He glanced at the thug with disdain, realizing that the younger generation still had a lot to learn about bullying. The other two thugs thought Xiaoyong was Shan's older brother and tried to threaten him, but Xiaoyong was ready. With a swift movement, he delivered a powerful kick to one of the thugs, knocking the wind out of him. The thug crumpled to the ground, unable to continue his attack. The thug was sent flying through the air as though he had been shot out of a cannon. Watching his comrade get tossed around like that, the remaining two thugs hesitated. Xiaoyong clearly knew his way around a fight. Maybe if they teamed up, they could land a blow. But judging by the cold, calculating look in his eyes, it seemed unlikely. One thug approached from the front, armed with a knife, while the other snuck up from behind with a bat. It wasn't the most brilliant plan, but it was all they had. The first move came from the one with the bat, swinging it wildly. Xiaoyong, sensing the attack, easily dodged by ducking low. His enhanced body was already proving its worth. Thanks to the potions he'd taken to boost his physical abilities, his reflexes were on another level. He grabbed the thug, swinging the bat by the collar, as effortlessly as if he were grabbing a misbehaving child. With a swift motion, he slammed the thug into the ground, the impact knocking him out cold. A hard fall to the concrete must have done the trick. Seeing his partner go down, the remaining thug rushed at Xiaoyong, knife in hand. Xiaoyong didn't even flinch as he deflected the weapon, locking eyes with the blonde thug in a chilling stare. With no hesitation, Xiaoyong prepared for another strike, kicking the thug on the side of his leg. The power behind the kick was enough to send him crumpling to the ground, his face meeting the pavement with a loud thud. In mere moments, the two wannabe tough guys were out of the picture. Now, Xiao Yang's focus shifted to the witches taunting Shan Shan for no reason. After surviving the brutal first apocalypse, Xiao Yang had adopted a mantra of equal rights, equal fights. So, without warning, he slapped one of the witches across the face. The slap was forceful, sending a shiver through her and leaving her cheek red and stinging. As for the other witch, who had been pulling Shan Shan's hair, Xiao Yang decided she needed a taste of her own medicine. He didn't release his grip, no matter how much she begged. With a fierce glare, he drew the knife from the fallen thug and pressed it to her neck. Terrified, the witch's eyes widened with fear, and the next sound that rang out was a sharp slash, followed by a gut-wrenching scream. Xiao Yang didn't even flinch. During the first apocalypse, he had done whatever it took to survive, and those instincts still guided him. The witch, now trembling, watched in shock as her friend collapsed to the ground, seemingly defeated and powerless. And that's a wrap for today's recap. If you liked it, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more thrilling updates. Don't forget to leave a comment if you're looking forward to part 2. Your support means the world. Thanks for watching.